You are wild. Yeah, I put it live now so that we can also wow the viewers out there. And Prof is here, is hearing you. Prof, yeah, I think, Prof, we must give you platform to lecture, because this was a lecture of note, and over and above you facilitating sessions. I think this type of a lecture is punchy.
Mm. It is awesome.
No, thanks. And on a lighter note, I wanted to say to Queen, even after 43 years of marriage, we still have some elephants because of the difficult conversations. You just say, hey, this elephant, I will.
Yeah.
It's again, I would say it's because of the realizing the possibility of losing something that you don't want to lose, and not having the courage to, to create an imbalance. Then we like, I'm just going to live with it, So through that, but then we end up with so many elephants. There's no space.
This one must grow into a bull elephant and an ox elephant.
Oh, wow, this is awesome.
But it's very nice when we can laugh about these serious matters, because indeed they are heavy, and we want to be agents of change and facilitate them. We've got to be in the right space. I have a question for you, Esme, on Facebook from what's her name? I have it here from Denise Mohoko. She's asking, how long does it take to prepare the mindset of new employees to get them to the commitment stage? And I said that I will raise the question and we'll try and answer it before Abdul takes over.
Oh.
I mean, I guess it will be an estimation of an answer. You might not have a quantitative, but more or less, how long will it take to get employees to the commitment level? And I guess the new employees that you are bringing into the organization.
It can take 4 to 6 months.
4 to 6 months.
Yes.
Yeah. So it needs time.
It takes time, yes.
Esme, I would even add, I normally say it takes 12 months. And the reason why I say it takes 12 months is an employee gets to live in the organization for the full financial year. Because when you look at the financial year, it prescribes the culture of the organization, because at different times, different things happen. And you see the culture of the organization when there's pressure, when there's no pressure, when they're dealing with this and they're dealing with that. So I always believe that until an employee has lived for 12 months in an organization, they don't really know enough to settle and say, okay, this is it, I'm part of it. So yes, 6 months plus. It's not a 1 week thing.
I think I saw, maybe I misunderstood the question from Sam. I'm talking about a specific cruise line.
Oh, I hear you. Okay, I hear you.
I think from your country, in terms of engaging you in pre-orientation, in terms of getting you the support from an agent here, in terms of putting you through training processes that must already be done. By the 6th month, you would, for 5 or 6 months, that employee, after all that engagement, all that support, you when you step on that ship, you want to be there, you are committed, you there's no two ways, I don't want to be here or not. So it takes 4 to 6 months. For your first time, 6 months, joining cruise ship, you were returning crew member, it will take you about 3 months.
So I can see that there are two levels of commitment here. There is that commitment which is the milestone in a cruise liner when they recruit new employees. And then the point that Queen you are addressing is where you now say, this is home. I made the right decision because I've seen all the stages in a one cycle of a year. So you know all the commas.
So I want to add on. Sorry, Sam,
Yes.
for interrupting. I want to add on to what Queen is saying. Under the normal life cycle of what we're using, we hire someone, you give a month's notice, 2 months notice where you work, and you join. It could take 12 months. If we would employ the strategy of the cruise liner with all of that pre-employment orientation and the change cycle happen before you actually step in that door, your commitment levels to the company, corporate company here on land can be shortened, especially with realization can help us a lot with that.
And I guess that depends on how proactive the company is with its recruitment practices. Because many a times when we are recruiting, there's already nobody there to do the work. So we don't even have time to orientate. The work is piling up every day. We want you to arrive and we just dump it on you because we need your hands.
Emergency.
So it is really indeed.
Honestly, I promise you, really, for some people it has taken 3-4 years. I've dealt with coaching clients who's been 3-4 years in a company and they have not landed yet. They have not settled yet. They're not settled, and has caused anxiety, and feeling not included, constantly anxious because there is no grip. I belong. So it can take very long.
I have another view. I'll bring it later on when we do the panel, and that is the view that is informed by Bruce Tuckman's team development stages. And to say that is actually not the problem of that employee, it's all of us involved in it because we have failed to go past that formation stage. Because every time a new employee comes in, you default back into the formation stage. We are all in it together because we are not a team any longer. So that is another discussion.
Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah. Abdul, those are management issues, by the way, not leadership. We are managing, putting together teams. So let's bring Abdul, who says, stop managing, lead things. Welcome back, colleagues. This is Abdul's segment. I'm glad your network is holding on. I've been waiting for your segment since we last met and prepared for this. Over to you, my brother. Managing diversity versus leading diversity. Over to you.
Yes.
Introduce yourself, your topic, and indulge us and our viewers.
Thanks, colleagues. There is little I can add from the introduction made by Sam. The only thing which I'm going to say, if there is a cut down, I'm having 2 routers. I'll switch to one from one to another just to make sure that I sustain the process. You'll bear with me for some time. Okay. As indicated by Sam, we live in a normal today which is characterized by conflicting commitments to contradictions in definitions and meanings of reasonable pluralism. While experience and knowledge become as rapidly obsolete as soon as they are universally available. the co-evolving interdependent contradictions and gaps therein consistently create tensions amongst people. The perception gaps create accountability and transparency integrity gap that institutionalizes this empowerment. However, governance is the totality of interactions of competing settled contestations of how scarce societal resources are allocated to advance societal aspirations. It donates a significant a significance, and that enhances coordination and sustainably improve developmental outcomes. At the same time, legitimacy and trust in governance relies on formal and informal processes. This is beyond an array of rituals. It transcends individual institutions and territories, territorial defined spaces. The exercise of authority at the same time and the control over institutional affairs is more dependent on the ability to engage in robust, expansive democracy. Often, this is supported by covenants or agreements that are perhaps backed up by regulatory frameworks beyond technical expertise. Sorry for that. Governance is the foundation of responses to legitimate citizenry concerns. It's about maintaining in the average person's mind relevancy, credibility, and legitimacy of power and authority in a manner that is consistent with a common good. It involves people participating in exercise of legal rights, openness to articulate a defining role in simultaneous affirmation and reaffirmation of sustainable life cycles, accountability for obligations committed irrespective of different views, effectiveness that is reflective of context within which policies are devised rather than binding ordinances. I thought I was gone. Coherence when mediating differences that have to be maintained through all levels of the institution of the governance system. Building an effective, accountable, and inclusive institution at all levels involves maintaining integrity of psychological bonds of interpersonal attraction between individuals towards a common vision and a mission. Also, a spiritualized and spiritualized psychological distinctiveness that clarifies a co-creation of sustainable set vision. Focuses on consistency in the relative in-depth appreciation of the collective's role in ensuring efficacy of realization of a clearly defined public good and values that are embedded in a competitive, collaborative culture. Sorry for that. Value tensions, which are the unsustainable, egoistic goals frames, more especially when they are consistently inconsistent with the collective essence and complexity of real life, are a function of impaired expectations of others. They occur when there is inadequate support for cultural values that inform institutional purpose. On the consistently fluid environment, the challenge of a seasonal feeling, being in control of own destiny, and designing institutional behavior influencing relations for optimal institutional integration of society. Ideal institutions have origins either in sharing a common identity without losing separate identities as a result of bonds of interpersonal attraction, or a people coming people coming together to share a defined social objective to contain the rates at which uncertainty and unfamiliarity overcome them. Institutions with origins in bonds of interpersonal attraction pursue extents, properties of intrinsic structural laws of behavior of members towards societal conscience, fit in the ecological niche that highly positively contributes to interdependency amongst the people for optimized desired societal self-actualization. While institutions with origins in shared defined social objectives are not social networks or social structures that are composed of individuals that are tied or connected by one or more specific types of interdependence. Also, they are not representations of extensions of social structures that generally characterize human life. That is the spontaneous emergence of groups and organizations that express personal objectives and goals of the individual membership. Focus is on the extent to which structures of ties in the institution affect the individuals and their relations, and how a composition of ties affects their norms, as interpersonal attraction is only secondary and for enhancing connection between individuals. The intention is to ensure the institution does not diverge significantly from their definition and meaning of citizenship. Based on the foregoing, I'm addressing the importance of leadership I'm addressing the importance of leading diversity relative to managing diversity. Okay. Managing diversity, more so these days, is about equity plans to dominate based on the people's experience in terms of lived destructive political and value-laden intentions and deficiencies in institutionalizing emancipatory transformation of societal conscience. It is a fictional framing of common purpose that is defined by one's degree of orientation towards either property relations or access relations. Property relations stand for rationality and individualism, while access relations stand for holding society together through trust and commitment to visible and open relations based on violation. Tendencies to maximize localized efficiency, a function of incompatibility of tailored behavior and established legitimate privileges of the political of a collective with a centenary collective desire, fails to institutionalize a framing of societal conscience identity that defines and influences behavior that preserves distinct self-identities and a collective identity. It is characterized by increasing coexistence of exclusion and distrust or impaired belief in others. It is not focused on behavioral change, but a transformation of underlying normative orientation that structures specific people attitudes, including values and beliefs. It's done through structures that focus on extents to which composition of ties in relationships affect norms and characterize human life, and social networks that are composed of individuals who are assumed to be discrete building blocks of society, connected by one or more specific types of interdependence. It focuses on solving moving target problem puzzles within monopolized, minimized meaning of optimized societal conscience. It is not defined by a presumed need for monologue on transactional maintenance of standardized management of fear, but behavioral change in a citizenry. It involves testing limits and/or verification of existing theories to confirm expectation or to confirm areas about which there are some speculation to trigger a particular goal frame. Power is known with the collective to be in control and be more accountable without being controlling. The approach to diversity is deliberately socially constructed to minimize the impact of institutionalized deviant behavior. It's about reassuring structural stability and predictability for dominance in a particular form substance. It is grounded in moving target controversies and gaps in people's assertions about some speculation about a goal frame, including impaired signal values within which stakeholders re-examine the emerging trends. The disadvantages of managing diversity are that discretional commitment to stakeholder-specific initiatives and power relations as a basis for conceptualization of societal conscience sustains a fictional system of rules, framing common purpose that is not impersonal and universally binding. I wonder whether we are together so far. Are we together?
Yes, Abdul. We are listening attentively to follow the angle you are coming from. I hear quite. I mean, I hear you substantiating the arguments with a lot of theoretical concepts. So that's why we are trying to connect your theoretical concepts and then the message you're trying to send. It's not easy to follow. I'm not sure about the colleagues, but I'm trying to be very attentive to listen to the theory and then the argument. So it's not coming out clear, but I'm sure we will get to a point where we'll ask you questions to clarify something. Up to so far, I'm hearing the arguments coming in through. It's a methodology you are using that requires full attention, which is great because I can see that this is a researched approach you are following. So we want to get ultimately the message. Don't worry, we're listening.
Okay.
unless you want us to exchange in between. We can interject if you want.
No, it's fine. I can continue until the point when
okay.
The indulging in illusions of power. Actually, what I'm basically saying, diversity management indulges in illusions of power and control of particularized institutional interests or understandings of certain rationalisms that are woven deeply into the fabric of particularized social conscience. It weakens dedication to and enforcement of common purpose. It signals a compromised trust amongst people. If the focus on solving problem puzzles, where developments are re-examined in terms of deconfirmations or confirmations about which there is some speculation, is a premature conceptualization and the minimization of meaning of optimized societal conscience. It creates susceptibility of institutions to conceptualization of value creation and value protection that triggers a particular goal frame, irrespective of consistency with the institutional mission. It manifests in institutionalization of legitimacy privileges of the political, of a collective, or the institutionalization of weakening and minimizing of opportunities for greater insights into states of individuals and the collective for selfish motives. It negatively affects societal solidarity, justice, and integration. Basically what I'm saying is that diversity management is driven by competence traps about a particular life cycle of a people. It's a politicization of relative appreciation of a need to belong, which does not legitimize necessarily either institutional power, ecological integrity, or strategic exercise of power. The cooperative relationships, because basically we're saying for diversity management to take place, there should be cooperative relations which focus on deconflicting forces in moving target controversies and gaps in people's assertions amongst stakeholders. It impairs engagement of assumed adversaries and unhealthy competing interests. It underlies prescription of accessible sets of habits in one's day-to-day individual learning curves. The acceptance to interact and act within limits of set values that become obsolete as soon as they are universally available, and the ignorance of processes by which materials of a situation need to be attended to and framed, and the context in which they are to be attended to in everyone's learning curves, directs attention away from sustainable insights in influences of societal construction, of meanings and interpretations of property of a certain collective. It weakens interactive power of instinctive commitment to institutional structures for dedication to and the enforcement of common purpose, which institutionalizes exclusion and distrust. It's a classic example here. Well, we look at the issues which have gone through Black empowerment and women empowerment, and you find people become aggressive toward those who have been empowered in one way or another. It comes to that. And I'm basically saying the rhetoric monologue, where a carefully sanitized version of truth is crafted to dominate as good news, no matter what the warning signs may be, compromises integrity of societal long-term position and success, and sustains a crisis of legitimacy of institutional power and credibility of agent authority. When dealing with value in the links and linkages in the competing real things of synergetic existence, the shared common society identity that satisfies the need to belong, it negatively impacts efficacy of arrangement and rearrangements of intrinsic structural laws of a whole. It manifests in restructuring and recurring restructuring and reengineering of institutions. On the other hand, leading diversity is about power with a citizenry collective. It is defined by relational coherent behavior in the constructive conversations about unequally distributed interacting human behavioral influences without surrendering respective political power. It focuses on converging and consolidating a diverse contextual people reality of influences of core values of power, including developmental structures and political possibilities, to engender transformative behavior for co-determination of credible imagination of a world of inclusive, self-actualizing societal conscience. The intention of leading diversity is to develop continuously capacity for self-awareness of a sustainable self-control and appreciation of how structures of individuals and collective ties affect relationships, and how a composition of ties affects the norms of a big picture of full inclusion, equality, and equal opportunities. I think we're still together.
Absolutely, I get you, and let's engage you. Let's engage you because we don't want you. I don't want you to move on, and you're not. It looks like you are not sure whether we are following. Yes. My understanding that you are giving us a philosophical view that you have around managing and leading diversity. I hope you're going to get to a point where you guide us. How will you then put together the strategy that will change the practice of managing to leading? And then once you guide us there, then I'll be very interested to know how do we integrate that strategy into other processes of leading, if you were leading an organization. Am I right?
Yes.
So you're at a philosophical level now, okay? Is that okay? Okay, then I'm okay, because I was, Prof, you want to say something?
Sorry, I actually put a question, but I'm struggling a bit with, forming a mental picture of the key scaffolds. If Abdul could help me with that, or, for example, is power on the one hand versus what and what and what, and what are the connections? That's what I'm battling with a bit.
Maybe, Prof, let me go to the end. Maybe then we talk, as you rightly said, as Sam was saying. Let me go to the end, because those things are at the end.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
So then we're waiting patiently because we want to grab something out of the input.
So for converging strategically important, interested and affected community interests issues that underlie a set vision, which is a state dictates the solution to be found. It's facilitated by surrendering to holistic exploration of core attitudes towards unwarranted fears of the unknown that cause distrust, disrespect, with a view to achieve a vision of a more just and fair society. The collective moral force is centered around efficacy. When we are dealing with leading diversity, we are saying the moral force is centered around efficacy, the degree of orientation toward the competing efficacy and effectiveness, which to a larger degree also determine the direction of any institution. In this case, it applies courageously reason more than feelings to global citizenship aspiration. Focuses on adequate interpretation of environmental stimuli that enables a higher level of mutual commitment to an all life cycle conceptualizing citizenship benefit of synergy through diversity. It explores disruptive unknowns in the meanings attached to hope of a sustainable integration of forces at rates that are at least equal to or greater than the rate of disruption and change in the intervened environment. It involves reconciliation of apparently perceived irreconcilable conflicts in emotions and aspirations of worthy life cycle conceptualizing citizenship. It facilitates redefinition of habits for convenience to commit to adoptive attitude to credibly, possibly shape all people's beliefs in the institutional power and the institutional agent authority. It's about being in control of contextual creation and recreation of the future today that is consistent with the different stereotypes of a people's view of a bigger picture identity. It is sustained by institutionalizing meaningfully individual and the citizenry collective strategic insights in the continuously evolving forces and the patterns of behavioral relationships that are not obvious as drivers of default behavior and strategic concerns, and the voices in the little internal voices that tell meanings of good life and how best to achieve it for the greater society, rather than a select minority. It is underpinned by all people's trust and involvement in the hearts and minds in the creation of a vision that inspires and provides a stronger sense of purpose and direction. It integrates forces in the seasonal collective imaginative states of a world of globally rationalized, just, fair, and fair society that satisfies the need to belong in surprise. It fosters behavior for dealing with optimally certainty of uncertainty and discomfort. The advantages of the process are that power with the collective from individual and a collective perspective identifies with constructive, consistent meanings and interpretations of the logic of developing patterns of interactive structures of a complex ecosystem of a vision. It reduces conceptual uncertainties and goal conflicts in essence and complexity of real life to maintain a distinct institutional functioning identity in each person. Each person's worldview. It minimizes value judgments associated with personalized understanding and pre-understanding derived from lived experiences, while maintaining institutional identity and the self-identity of those who belong thereto under different conditions. It It strengthens behavior for shaping globally competitive, bigger picture societal conscience, ecological integrity. Property relations and access relations are consistent with the set problem in terms of desired societal conscience, ecological integrity. The approach therefore, sustainable framing of transformation to achieve a set problem involves developing disruptive mindset behavioral perspectives of a people collective, rethinking the essence of complexity of real life, and new knowledge constructs framing ownership of a realization of a collective destiny objectives in the breadth and depth of disruptions in multiple motives and substance and the value of societal conscience. Wow. It requires mastering interpersonal competences for constructive framing of sustainable imaginative states of a world of self-actualizing societal conscience. However, pursuit of integrating cohesive and synergetic substantive societal opportunity structures to deal with emotional responses to continuously evolving desired vision starts with the stakeholders in-depth understanding of nature, the nature of set problem within the evolving nature of societal dilemma. It involves commitment to engaging forces in emerging behavioral change and influence from unconscious phenomenal behavior or unintended changes in the situation. Interest is in comprehensive deep articulation of contextual convergence of everybody's insights for rediscovery of sustainable collective destiny that embodies a just and fair society in surprise. Transformation of societal conscience, political relations, the development ways in which consistently unequally distributed interacting citizenry behavior and practice converge, the framing of inconsistencies in concepts of societal conscience, categories, and properties involves building spaces for consistent competitive psychological capital connections, emotionally, mentally, and relational energies of trust, identification, and perceptions of a range of emotional behavior that disrupt and spur deeper reflection and critical thinking about the most strategically important and significant influencing factors for redefining and rediscovering sustainable patterns and identities of a citizenry collective, each in his or her own world. The issue is to shape achievement of a set vision that satisfies simultaneously multiple goals of individuals and the citizenry collective. Emotional intelligence is critical in enhancing willing to meaning, but willing to power or willing to pleasure of inner conflicts. It's a non-preposition active exploration and the evaluation of relationships in emerging emotions, power, and political relatedness in the disruptive unknown. Focuses on simultaneous deepening and scaling up positive impact of sustainable insights into mutually converging ways of continuously, consistently adapting to the future today. That is the satisfaction of a need to belong that maintains legitimacy of institutional power, ecological integrity. It minimizes consideration of higher calling passion and politics that controls and dominates over institution of control of instruments of power over common direction. Adapting continuously to sustainable, optimal life cycle self-actualizing societal conscience benefits of synergy through diversity involves mastering, stepping out of a situation to re-examine soundness of critical extant claims and experiences, including those that do no longer matter, but were instrumental in determining a seasonal collective psychological distinctiveness identity in the broader societal conscience, in light of consistently emerging properties and interrelationship of different categories and concepts of life cycle seasonal behavior, and not necessarily vice versa. It controls substantively integrity of meanings and definitions of a seasonal collective along a seasonal collective long-term target position and success. The citizenry has power over their respective spaces of comfort from their perspective. Leading diversity is purposeful. In conclusion, leading diversity is purposeful, non-voluntary commitment to real-time constructive synergetic interactions that overcome competence traps without a need to use any instruments of power over cultural values. Thus, it avoids strategic amnesia and blockages to ownership of optimal functionality of societal conscience to adapt to environmental pressures. It breaks asymmetric behavioral interactions of globalized forces and lived experiences, including discretional commitment to personal interest to sustain trust, loyalty, and voice. At all times, meaningful, sustainable grounding in competitive, transformative culture and psychological conditions for engaging in pursuit of a seasonal collective clear picture of stretch goal global identity is about being a fair witness to inspirations and motives of a seasonal collective proclamation of value of hope. It is anchored by self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. It influences behavior for positively shaping and transforming partners and identities of a citizenry psychological abilities and the conditions of thoughtful, creative, out-of-the-box culture of intentional learning. The intention is to unlearn, to learn aspired societal conscience in subtle dialogues about shared prosperity in everyone's world of broadly specified sets of beliefs and assumptions. Meaningfully, it configures longer-term societal of opportunity structures that involve a balancing of power, status, and social or cultural capital in a non-linear and non-deterministic thinking dialogue. It is about leading inseparable emotion and perceived reality, and the tensions and power that influences what to learn and organize in the meaning of each new paradigm of a world of life cycle citizenship correlation. However, maintaining a distinct functioning identity in the minds of each other involves commitment to meaningful, competitive, sustainable, optimal life cycle self-actualization, social consent, and building consensus on the basis for synergies of inextricable interaction amongst ordinary citizens, including interest groups. Overall, it is about a citizenry collective, transformative behavior for maintenance of trust, loyalty, and voice, and dismantling obscure bases of neo-patrimonial rules, including capacities of patrimonial networks and political clientelism. The intention is to operate at such a level and in such a way as to permit changes of the state in a manner that maintains its identity, supports the self-identities of those who belong there too, and is capable of transforming itself without intolerable threat to the essential functions the system fulfills for the self. Contrary to leading diversity, managing diversity, a deliberate, socially constructed engagement of discrete building blocks of society for equal opportunities and inclusiveness for survival, fixes meaning of a world-rich picture of socio-economic political development. That is a citizenry collective psychological distinctiveness identity. It is premised, managing diversity is premised on the need to optimize behavior that maximizes certain citizenry welfare, but not necessarily all citizenry welfare. Within competency traps, tolerance is within instruments of power, where consideration of higher person demeans alternative strategic views from expansive feedback. Thus, it creates a systematic barrier to cohesion and the shared cognitive base for enshrined life cycle citizenship. A focus on transition rather than change leads to a range of emotional behavior, including willing ignorance, as persons are not expected to behave impersonally in regard to societal conscience relationships, even if any of them experience different private beliefs about them. The undervaluing of knowing in action, where opportunistic actions are inconsistent, inconsistent with the citizenry collective behavior and the setting of what the state dictates the type of solution to be found, minimizes opportunities for greater insights into a citizenry collective needs, expectations, and aspirations. It has potential to compromise integrity of societal longer-term position and success, where institutionalization of exclusion and distrust destroys institutions. The top-down approach to diversity by a core group of people who are open to preparing, discussing, and accepting change, rather than the actual change itself, is based on analysis of institutions' strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. That is SWOT analysis. That is inappropriate in a volatile environment, as it distorts meaning of optimal societal conscience. Excuse me. And the opportunistic approaches do not focus on necessarily efficacy of the institution in terms of optimization of life cycle, self-actualizing societal conscience, but management of the class balance of forces within society. It affects negatively social solidarity, justice, and integration. This is more so that class differentiations are based on commoditization of particularized optimized life cycle, self-actualizing citizenships, and consequently a seasonally diminishing confidence in legitimacy of institutional power and the credibility of institutional agents' authority. Often, some members of society hold low identity with the decisions taken, to the extent that some curtail involvement in societal conscience dialogues. Thanks for listening. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Abdul. I'm sure there's a lot of questions for clarification from the colleagues. I will, before I ask my own clarification, I will open the floor because we still have at least 5 minutes to engage on your input. Anyone who wants to engage, Abdul?
So can I go first, Abdul? I tried to get the distinction between leading diversity and managing diversity.
Yes.
And what I got from what you shared is managing diversity has the potential to create resistance because of the lack of focus of what it must deliver.
Yes.
Is that an accurate summary of what you were sharing?
Not only that, managing diversity, you are reacting to a situation.
Okay.
You are not managing behaviors, change of behavior at any cost into the future. You are just managing that which is emerging as it comes, and which is consistent with what you are saying. Still yours?
Prof wants to follow through.
Yeah, my bit of struggle is around, you know, the key scaffolds. You know, some of the key words that you use around power, around social, you know, social intelligence. So just that conceptual framework of connecting those dots for me, saying when X does this, this is leading. When Y does this, this is managing. But who is X and Y? I think that's a bit of battle that I'm having.
Maybe let me start with where I started with diversity management. Essentially, what I'm saying is that diversity management is prepositional. Diversity management is preposition. It's based on experience, and whatever you do, you explain it within the experience which has occurred. Unlike leading diversity, you in leading diversity, you re-examine what has happened before in terms of emerging trends. Does that make sense? The first one, I'm saying managing diversity, managing diversity, you re-examine progress in light of what has been experienced. But in leading diversity, you re-examine what has happened, experience in relation to emerging trends. You remember, it's not prepositional, it's non-prepositional. I don't know whether I'm coming through. Prof, maybe you can correct me.
And this is very interesting because you are challenging the way I've looked at things from the. Let's go to just a pure leadership versus management, and let's remove diversity because maybe it will be easy for me. So I'm just thinking that I'm running this organization, and then in my forward looking as a leader, I realize that diversity is one thing that if we don't address it as this business, we are not going to be able to capitalize on the opportunities that are presented by the fact that our market is diverse and people are diverse. Now, we take a leadership decision, forward-looking decision to say that we want leadership in diversity to be our core competency. We want to master it. But I am sitting on Exco, and my CEO says, you are going to be the leader of diversity in our organization. Or they say, okay, you are going to lead diversity for us. Now, I know that I'm removed from day-to-day management of these things. I just want to put into place the strategy, the structure, the processes, and identify champions and even technologies that must be in place for this organization to be able to realize the objective of becoming a leader in diversity. Now, then I said, okay, as a leader, that is philosophy, that's a strategy I must lead, because how else do you lead? Then I appoint somebody to say, you are going to make this happen. And then they say, give me the strategy. I give them the strategy, and they put together a program. Now, for that program to be implemented, somebody must manage. Now, my understanding, I thought you were going to enlighten us that when you are charged with the responsibility of leading, this is what you should do. Don't do what the manager of your program is going to do. That's how I looked at it. But now, it sounds like what you are saying is that there's a contestation in terms of just don't even talk about management of diversity. I'm getting confused because diversity for me is either a program or a process.
And that's what the problem is.
So I leave it there because I want to I want to understand that your management of diversity versus leadership, not either or, it's both. Are we right? Is that right?
Yes, no.
I'll leave it there and ask Esme to come in. I just want to make sure that I get the where you're coming from. Esme, I'll leave it to you.
Thanks, Abdul. You shared so much, very profound words and very deep. It was really challenging to keep track because it was so
Deep.
juicy and so deep. But I'm also having a struggle in I needed to land the difference in managing and leading diversity. So I'm in the same boat as Sam. So I'm trying to summarize it for myself to make sense. When you talk about managing, let's leave diversity out, managing and leading. So are you saying when you are managing a current situation based on its day-to-day activities in terms of diversity, you amend, you change, and you're managing behavior and you change it and you apply different processes and systems. Leading diversity, on the other hand, could one now, for me to make sense, could one now say it's connected to vision?
Yes, it's precisely.
Because
you're
vision
managing the
is something that doesn't exist. Vision is something that is re-examined based on trends and past experience, and you're going to create something completely new out of that, the leading of diversity.
Yes.
Based on trends, based on past experience, based on examination, based on past evidence, you are now creating something completely new.
Yes.
So can one sort of, it's a sort of a visioning concept to leading diversity instead of managing what's existing, amend it, going around it, fix it, change it, go up and down for years, over and over. But looking at from a broad perspective and say,
Yes.
this is what the reality, the perceived reality of what the people want.
Yes.
And visioning and leading that perceived reality and emotional state that people want to be in. I don't know.
No, you are both right. You know what happens? When you manage, managers react. Managers react to a situation. That's why we have problems in the country.
But not necessarily, Abdul, let's engage you there a little bit, because
yes.
not necessarily that when you're managing the current and the
okay.
My understanding of managing is also future looking. It could be future looking, because I need to manage the resources of this organization in a way that are efficient and effective, that for the next couple of months, I still have enough to deal with what I expect to come. So I'm the leader. I assign my manager to make sure that they allocate resources in a way that we never experience scarcity, because we have certain objectives to meet. That is managing.
Yes.
And I want to make you to agree that it's not either or, but both.
No. Let me disagree with you.
No, that's fine. I'm just trying to make sure that I understand where you're coming from. That's why I'm saying.
Managing starts with the SWOT analysis.
Yes.
You go into a process and say, these are our strengths, these are our opportunities, these are our threats, and everything. It anchors that one. But in leading, SWOT analysis is at the end. You start by identifying, you go into a scanning process and say, this is the environment we are dealing with. Let me just give you a class. Let me just put it to a level here. Let's go to between 1990 and 94, when Mandela was released. We went through a negotiation process. Those negotiations were about creating stability in the country through managing race relations. And we forgot one thing, which has come out in July this year, when people rioted in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng. We did not change the mindset from let's go to Soweto. Last week I was with the president in Soweto when during the voter registration. What I saw, people put stones in the road. The president couldn't go in some areas. It starts there. There was no change of mindset.
But those are symptoms of the interventions having lacked impact in certain areas.
Let me
symptoms of something that we failed to manage. And
let me contradict that.
I'm just trying. I know. Sorry, Abdul. Are we not going too broad and then lose really what we had thought we were going to come out of the discussion? I think you opened you opened it maybe too wide that we got lost. I don't know. That I'm just
no. Okay. Maybe let me just put it this way. Leading diversity is reactionary. You manage the immediate issues which are creeping in as they come. That is managing.
But I'm saying not necessarily. It's not necessarily the case that when you are managing immediate things. Otherwise, the organization will have plunged. So many organizations will plunge. Many organizations are very poor in leadership, but they're very strong in management because they've got a very strong market, strong in customers. So they are just maintaining what they have but they continue. So there are organizations who don't have enough of the market, enough of the resources, but they are agile because they are forward-looking and all those things. They've got very good leadership, although they don't have enough resources, but they continue existing. So that's why I'm saying that maybe there's a contestation of our understanding of these two in terms of the schools of thought where we all coming from, which is maybe different. Political leadership and political management of a country has got a certain inclination towards political instruments you use. It's very different to management and leadership of maybe enterprise, which is what probably maybe we're confining diversity, but I'm not saying it should be there only. And also even within political structures, an executive mayor of a city is really is like a CEO. So yes, he's a political appointee, but a lot of his scorecard is based on the deliverables, which is in many cases the that the citizens of that city are expecting. So I think that's why I was saying, don't you think that you have broadened this topic too much that we then lose what we thought you wanted to address when you say managing diversity versus leadership? I mean, we could maybe redefine what we wanted to do. I'm just trying to save my confusion. Sorry.
Okay, it's me.
Esme want to follow through. But it's a very
Queen went first. Queenie went first.
Okay.
Queenie had a question first.
Oh, okay, so, Queen.
If Queenie is not gonna speak, so okay, I'm in the same boat as Sam. Abdul, okay. Let me ask you one question. You were in the session where I explained how diversity, how we let diversity in the cruise ship context. Now, in your worldview and your school of thought and philosophical way of where you are coming from, was that managing diversity or leading?
Okay, you want me to answer now or after Queen? You know, okay. When I looked at Queen's, let me just take it from Queen's explanation. When I looked at what Queen was saying, it was more oriented towards leading diversity more than managing diversity, because she was going into behavioral change as anchor of institutional change, more than discrete, working within discrete parameters and say we want this. When there is a fine understanding of what is desired in the ultimate, people don't think, for example, about color per se. They look at things from a perspective, this is what we're supposed to deliver. Have we delivered? Haven't we delivered? That is managing diversity from that perspective. But when you put across discrete parameters, 10 blacks versus 5 whites, that goes into management. You are managing absolute issues without necessarily changing behavior of the people around you, in which case it creates conflicts in organizations, unintended conflicts, which, as Queen was saying before. And
okay,
that's
why the whole... Pardon?
Okay.
But Abdul, you're losing us because
I wanted you to answer me that question, because then it would have landed if you were in that whole conversation where I explained about leading, right? Starting from changing the mindsets of the people. We're talking about organizational context, not political, because that's broad and that requires interventions. From leading and changing the mindset of integrating employees. Let's talk in a word concepts. This is now my concept of leading. Based on past experience, based on trends, we foresee scenarios of what could possibly be the problems in that environment that will exist. So let's lead and let's integrate and let's transform the mindset so that when they land in that environment, they are ready And when they are there, obviously we have to manage the diversity when they are there.
That is leading. You start, remember?
Yeah.
You cannot.
But you see, that's why I want Abdul to say yes or no to me when I say it's not either or. It's both managing and leading. They are necessary.
That's also where my landing is going. It's
at a certain
leading
level
and managing. We can't choose one and say managing is not.
Remember, it's at a certain level.
No, then we agree. Then we agree. But the way you had put these two, it was as if you have to choose between the two.
Yes, yes.
And I had Queen, you want to come in?
Okay.
I think I understand what Abdul is saying, and I'm going to use the example that you're using, Abdul, to say when we say diversity is. Can you mute so that we don't have the? Okay. I'm getting the
Okay.
So when you say that managing the example that you're giving, where we say diversity means 5 Black women, 2 Black men, that is management, and it is bound to create resistance, because that style of implementing diversity triggers right and wrong. And the minute there's right and wrong, the potential for some people to feel attacked and therefore need to defend makes resistance to be the obvious response. So instead of managing diversity like that, it's looking futuristic, and you kept using the word interrelations or interdependence. And I appreciate from what I could deduce from everything that you said, that while managing diversity has potential to create resistance, leading diversity, looking at who we are, what we want, where we are going, has a better chance at enticing people to participate. That's how I'm understanding you.
But that's what I was saying exactly to Abdul, to say that when you're speaking from a leading perspective, we're talking visioning there. Because leading is visioning. You are creating a visioning of a reality of what people aspire to want to be, that utopia, the perfect world they want to live in. Leading, right? That's what leadership does, right? The management aspect is you gotta have people who's managing that vision.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, or maybe you say, or we say the approach comes from leading first instead of approaching it from management. Let's approach it from leading and then management. But for me, I feel you cannot throw out management. Who's going to do the sustainability of it? Who's going to do the implementation of it? So you can't pick one or the other. I would rather say start from leading, visioning, and then management. But don't come from management and stay there, because then we go in circles.
Is it perhaps not a matter of where do you put emphasis on, Prof?
Yeah, I just wanted to that I don't know, it might help. You know, when Abdul said the input by Queen spoke to his conceptual framework, and he said yes. And then when Esme said the input she made addressed his conceptual framework, and he said yes again, that to me said it is not either or, it is both and. It's leading and managing, and I don't know if that helps.
At the end of the day, Abdul, this is helpful because maybe we do confuse our clients out there, because at the end of the day, and unfortunately, some of these things have certain milestones that need to be achieved. Some companies are blamed for not having diversity inside, not even managing it. They just don't have it because of their recruitment practices. So they're going to have a recruitment people having that as a process they do. But once you have it there, to sustain it, as Esme was saying, managers are charged with the responsibility to keep the status quo and better it. That's the scorecard. But then progressive companies will have somebody at the top level who among the leadership who is accountable to make sure that the company addresses these issues, because unfortunately or fortunately, these things are at the end of the day impacting on the bottom line. Maybe you might be coming with a philosophical point of view and a political point of view. For some organizations, these are bread and butter issues because the market is diverse. And if you are not responding to what the market expects from you, you are just going to close shop, you know? And therefore, then I find that management excellence and leadership, visionary leadership, both of them, they are actually they one side, two sides of the same coin. And therefore, your way of doing it is to know that at what level do you focus on what. And that's why we always say, and Queen said that, and Ismail as well said that, where do we start? And then Esme said, leadership. And I thought that actually, if I think of it, that for this company to take this direction of being excellent in dealing with diversity, it needs a leadership decision and a sponsorship. But the EXCO member who's charged with that, who's accountable, is not going to do it himself. He's going to delegate it to his management to make sure that there are programs implemented to achieve that strategic objective that is sitting at the EXCO.
But Sam, I still still understand what Abdul is saying. To say, unless the leadership direction is clear, unless it is clear, and,
yes.
what it must do, the impact on. So, what are we doing? What is the benefit? Who are the beneficiaries?
No, Abdul says is more than the clarity, is the philosophy. Well, that's why I was saying that Abdul says if you have leaders who don't buy this philosophy, forget it, you are not going to go anywhere. So we haven't even started about clarity, we're talking about philosophy. Now, my question is, can the board mandate and demand that the CEO lead diversity, irrespective of whether he philosophically agrees or not? He has to lead it.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe I'm complicating matters.
Sam, you are 100% right. You know what happened? A CEO is the champion of diversity.
Yes.
That's the second point. He's the leader. Remember, the CEO.
We have 10 minutes to go. Otherwise, we're gonna be cut out of the.
The CEO focuses on behavioral change. Whatever he does, it's about changing behavior of the customer.
Yes.
That's the bottom line. That's why I said leading diversity is about behavioral change, alignment of behavior to the end goal. Then in between, below, you get people who say, who do the donkey work to socket? How do we
then we are in agreement, then I'm happy, Abdul, because that's basically then I'm happy. Because that's what the leadership is all about. And but sometimes you might have to take people on workshops that Prof and I facilitate, and we might have to put that a spreadsheet, and we might have to produce scorecards. That is management.
That's pure management. That's not leadership. You are managing.
But you can't achieve those leadership objectives if there's no management.
Yes. No, what you are saying is to remember what I'm saying here is that.
Okay, then we agree.
To focus on diversity. The starting point is not.
Okay, now I hear you.
Yes.
Yeah, but then Abdul, you want the most complicated way. You are saying that we must focus on leading diversity, not on managing. Not that we don't need both.
No, Thank you, but we've been saying this all along, everybody. Abdul,
in the end, the anchor of diversity is leading diversity, not managing diversity.
Agreed. Okay. We agree.
Thank you.
The anchor is leading.
Thank you, colleagues. We have to go. We have 7 minutes to. We'll continue in the reflection panel because this is exactly it. Actually, Abdul took us to a reflection mode because I was trying to unpack but anyway. So thanks, Abdul. Wow, this was hot.
Thanks for your input.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. We'll connect in the last segment where we. And I'm very glad that your internet was so stable, Abdul. Otherwise, we will have missed even more. Thank you. Let's connect at 3 o'clock to run through the reflection segment. Thank you, Abdul. Great stuff.